Good morning and welcome. I was hoping we could have our say and then ask a favor of you. God and country, being a Yank, is made up of three things: straightening up my emotions, willing the good of another person, and doing it because Christ rose on the third day. The Catholic Mass and communion and that sort of thing. So, straightening up my emotions. Both the Catholic and the atheist define mental illness as the normal taken into the abnormal, from a cold to the flu to pneumonia. The Catholics say, hold on, go backwards. The normal is normal, but not good enough. For example, if you're a young Catholic stud, sit in a chair, close your eyes, fantasize about the gals until you become sexually aroused. Open your eyes, look around the room, and do it again, only this time you're trying to start a family. And there you have it. Those very powerful arguments to associate them with actually getting the gal pregnant and starting a family is not a natural thing at all, and you'll understand what original sin is with a snap of a finger. There's more to it, a race relegated to an endearing quality of your parents, to kick yourself out of the chimpanzee side of life and to come over here and start to do things consciously, that sort of thing. And you can add to that an argument of decency. The priest or the pimp, the classic battle of good and evil. The pimp is somebody who knows how to manipulate, intimidate, hustle, and con, and in this world he's called the bad guy. On the other side, because as a priest you're a Yank. And you put those two together and you become a good person, and if you choose a good husband and a good father, and it spills into home economics, and it's home economics that gets you out of poverty and into plenty. But wait a minute, there's still that third thing you have to add, isn't there? The disposition of the sheriff of Dodge City, the big lug that defends people for no good reason, as opposed to the gang guy or the communist or the Darwin alpha male. And still, there's still something missing. Aristotle and Socrates and those guys will say something like this: that's the way to go. That's how you build a just society with a huge middle class. But in all fairness, there's something missing. To be honest, the highest standard of living, if there is no God, is to be a psychopathic nut living in the foothills, you doing all the consuming and everybody in the valley doing all the producing for you. And it's the complete absence of that disposition. So going back to the sheriff of Dodge City, that disposition has sort of a plug to it, some missing thing, and you plug into some computer cloud of electrons up there, and that's Catholicism. That you hold as faith. And they get very spooky about it now. It's a very real thing now, isn't it? So you hold that as faith, and you have a grand deduction, and you head out into society, and if you breed a breed of normal, well-adjusted people, there'll be a breed of normal, well-adjusted people. If you arrange the parameters of competition so that there'll be a large middle class, there'll be a large middle class. It's as simple as that. So those three things make up God and country. If you have a little more time, we can add a few more things to it and then ask a favor from you. So let's pause for a moment and then continue. I'm glad you're still with us. Now, the communists said they would overthrow the United States in the 1970s, and there was a profound change in our society then. In psychology, that was when counselors came into being, and that was when they decided such things as homosexuality would no longer be a mental illness. The bum's rush there was that they threw out the whole idea of being a normal, well-adjusted person, the ideal man and the ideal woman, and they brought in the idea of the Darwin alpha male. In courts came out and said there shall be no religion in government, and in doing so they threw out those three things. They threw out Christ, they adopted malice, the sexual revolution, and they made it okay to make money by causing people to have to work more hours. They caused poverty, one of the unforgivable things in the Bible. They did that and just give it time, and it forms the lazy V. People get richer and richer and poorer, straight out of the book. I'll remind you also that judges wore black robes because Catholic priests 500 years ago in Great Britain wore black robes, and they had the words for it: natural law and positive divine law and those sorts of things. I'll remind you also that the word judicial means to establish facts that are true as true, and that's as opposed to the word sophistical, which means to establish facts that aren't true as true. And that does involve original sin and that sort of thing. And you realize that from the 1970s up to now, you couldn't go into a court and argue a judicial court. You have to go upstairs and have Christ in communion and the Pope and that sort of thing. And you declare Christ as truth itself, and then a judicial court comes in. And that's as true with the reasoning and the physics in your mind and the whole 9 yards, isn't it? Okay, and then there's economics. They had a chance to get onto a maintenance level or to cash in on it all and become an upper class and a peasant and property class society. They chose the latter. Home economics. Home economics is the smallest economic thing. 10-year-olds can't pay for their mommies. Mommies can't take care of the kids and go out and plow the field. And dad can't go plow the field and take care of the house. And so the married couple is viewed as a single unit. You have a living room to live in, and a dining room, and a kitchen to support the dining room, and a backyard and a front yard. And that's how you get a 1950s American household. It's actually one of the scientific ways of doing things. So please daydream, please, and picture a 1950s house. Now go out to the side, and at the bottom start with farming and mining. Then above that, manufacturing. Then above that, wholesale, retail, and repair. Then above that, retirement, education, and recreation. And the doctors and lawyers form a kind of lattice that holds it all together, and it's the Catholic priest that causes it to come into being to begin with. It comes from popes and monks and monasteries. So you ask the gal whether she would want a couch or 2 recliner chairs, and you can daydream and you can picture all the manufacturing and all the commercials, everything geared toward getting that gal what she wants. And that's how you get a huge middle class. That's the stuff that made the United States such a magical place to live. We weren't officially Catholic, but we were officially Yanks. And if you can't be officially a Yank without being Catholic, well, be Catholic. And now we're a bunch of Yanks and go to work. Okay, so we're going to pause again, and if you're still with us, we're going to add a small handful of things, a grab bag full of things you need to know. Then we're going to ask a favor of you. I'm glad you're still here. A grab bag of a couple of things that you need to know. So how does a pimp recruit a prostitute? A pimp recruits a prostitute in 3 stages. He singles the gal out from her friends. He keeps her from walking in one direction or the other, and that's stage 1. And stage 2, he touches her in some fashion. He holds her hand, shakes her hand, but he doesn't let go. And then stage 3, he says something like this: I have a temper, and I just don't know what I do when I have a temper, and you better be afraid of me, right? He says, and then he jumps at her. And she has this instantaneous decision to make. He goes from out there to touching her to inside her head. And she has this instantaneous decision. This guy's telling me I better be afraid of him or he's going to kill me. I can't act, so I better become, because I can't beat him up. And with that, her attitude changes. If her attitude changes, that's it. He's got her. The only way she's going to get out of that is for some other outside imposed thing, such as Catholic confession. And that's how he gets her. That's how a pimp recruits a prostitute. And you can just add to that the things. Hey, he only meant it if he could get away with it. If he can get away with it, he was just joking. You can turn on the TV, and whether it's the thug down the street, the gang guy, or the Radcliffe and Vassar gals, or the Communist Party, or the Chinese with their Art of War book, the Muslims, they're all the same thing. They all hustle like a pimp recruits a prostitute. I have a judo move for you. If you're, say, discussing something on the radio or that sort of thing, and there's an issue, stop and say, okay, before we go any farther, we're going to pretend that the young and big and strong come in and take violence out of the picture. And you'll be amazed if you're talking about a subject that how clearer your mind thinks if you don't have violence to worry about. What takes away your free will? Fear, sex, ignorance, and violence. Okay, so here's, oh, excuse me, I better add something else. You realize that now it's the Catholic versus not the communist or the fascist, but the cruel, queer, atheistic, communist, and fascist. Or they're just a bunch of queer scoundrels. It has nothing to do with going through the government or the private sector, does it? It has to do with the fact that they hold absolutes. They shoot up the place, they take over everything, they control the press and the courts, and they live in the big house, and you spend your life producing things for them. They call that a class of intelligentsia. You call that evil. It just depends on who's doing the talking. And so there are those three groups. There's two groups of a pimp. The Darwin side of us, the normal into the abnormal, and the intellectual side of us, or the satanic side of us. And on the other side are the good guys, the Catholic in the pews, the American Yank. So let's have another little trick. There's a young man, it's the 1970s, and he learned how to manipulate, intimidate, hustle, and con. He associates that with the satanic because that's what it is, and that's what he does, and he chose it, and he's quite comfortable with it. He goes to college, he gets a degree in architecture, so there's that attitude spilling into the real world. He marries a gal who majored in being a counselor. And so now it's the Darwin alpha male, and that's the healthy, well-adjusted person. And so what do? Well, at the time, the architect still made enough money to pay the gas and electric bill. So the gal's income was extra income, the consumption society. And what did they do? Instead of building a house for another person, they would build a duplex and have somebody else pay for their mortgage. And so in this huge middle class the United States had at that time, the people who were at the very bottom of that middle class but could still afford to get into a starter house, they were pushed into a class of peasantry. And that's how it started. And you just keep it up over time and our society will crash. Remember the lazy V on its side? Well, that was it. Okay, so there's those two grab bag of things that we need to know to get started. So let's take one more short break, and then if you're up to it, we're going to ask a favor from you. Back again. Okay, you guys, you can do some things that are terribly important. You can point out a sense of original sin. The priest and the pimp, which is the classic battle of good and evil, and sex is just an easy way of pointing out what original sin is. And you'll be amazed at how clear the arguments are and how easy it is to talk about things. You can also come up with judo moves on how to stand up to a cheap pimp. No one seems to be able to do it. This is your world. This is something you could do very easily. And then there's something else you can do. Now, if you're a gal, get into the character of a 1950s home economist. You have 4 children and a husband in a 3-bedroom brick house on a half-acre lot. How much money would you need to get the shop up and running? And since you're doing the producing, you do the consuming, you include tennis lessons for that, just to make sure that's said. And if you're a guy, how many hours do you have to work in order to come up with that much money? If you have a job, a mechanic is a job, a radio scanner, he's a job, that's a job too. A professional athlete, that's a consumption thing, that's not a job. You get the idea. If you can come up with those 2 numbers, you can do something. You can go from where we are now to straightening things out. It's a 4-step process is what you can accomplish it. 4 steps to straightening out the world. You can do it, and it's very important for you. Now, there's a YouTube channel called The Priest and the Pimp. And on Facebook and X and Instagram, it's called Time to Act. And hopefully Truth Social. So please join them. If you join them, you can accomplish something. You can get things done. I'm hoping to, if we can get somebody to join this group, to go live on the air so we can hear what you have to say personally. And so that's it. I hope you join us. I hope you hear this, and I hope you join our gang in the playground. I hope to see you.